This is a bonus episode of History as It Happens. It's April 15th, 2026. After 16 years in power, Viktor Orbán was defeated in Hungary's elections. A large majority of voters rejected the self-described illiberal Democrat, who had become a darling of the MAGA movement because of economic stagnation and endemic corruption in Hungary. You know, the first time I talked about Orbán on this podcast was about 5 years ago, after he sat down for an interview with Tucker Carlson. I was curious, why did some Americans see this Eastern European politician as a role model? Well, just last year, Carlson and Orbán met for another interview, this time at a global conference in Dubai, where the two reflected on what, in their view, was Orbán's successful record.
We have done something for 15 years in Hungary, in headwind, liberal headwind, stopping migration, defending traditional values, respecting religious communities, no Green Deal, low taxation, so everything which is unorthodox in the mind of the liberals. So we were a kind of hero. We were a kind of island of difference in the liberal ocean.
A year later, enormous crowds took to the streets of Budapest to celebrate Orbán's electoral demise. So what happened and what does it mean for right-wing populists elsewhere? Political scientist Veronica Anghel is an expert on Eastern Europe and the European Union at the Robert Schuman Center for Advanced Studies at the European University Institutes. Veronica Anghel, welcome back.
It's great to see you again, Martin.
My loyal listeners might remember way back in August 2021, you made your first appearance on the podcast almost 5 years ago. How is that possible? We were talking about the allure of Viktor Orbán to the American right. This was right after Tucker Carlson made a week-long visit to Hungary. He was on Fox News at that point, and they were talking about Orbán's views on Muslim immigrants, press freedom, etc. And now here we are 5 years later. Orbán is out. What led to his electoral demise?
Martin, it's really great to be here to discuss all these things again. And it goes to show that some things are, when they're good, they resist well beyond politics. So you're still here and Orbán's out, right? So that's a great achievement.
The Hungarian government was very angry about our conversation in August 2021, thought that we were inaccurate about Orbán's views.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, there are so many reasons why Orbán was ousted after 16 years of being in power. But primarily, this is much more about internal problems in Hungary and the way that Orbán made some serious mistakes related to internal politics as well as to Hungary's foreign policy. So I would first stress Hungary's economic deterioration, corruption that became impossible to ignore. Really, Orbán just lost track of mounting disconnect that was tied to Hungary's economic situation. When we talked, it was 2021. Throughout COVID, Hungary was really hit by the stagnation that followed. The GDP only expanded by 0.5% in 24-25. That's far below its long-term average. Investment in Hungary fell 20%. This really signaled deep structural problems that trickled down into the economy. Households were really hit hard and prices increased enormously, about 50% since 2020, 2021, since we talked about this. Sure. There was an economic model under Orbán that became heavily dependent on external funding, especially EU transfers. You have to keep in mind that Hungary doesn't really have a lot of the resources that other authoritarian curious countries have. So the EU was very important, amounted to around 3% of GDP annually for Hungary. So when the EU froze more than half of Hungary's allocated funds in the late 2022, right? So over rule of law concerns, this economic model came under strain. As I said, the post-pandemic recovery was weak. Inflation moved into double digits. The government didn't have the proper competitive policies to...
To listen to this entire 20-minute episode and enjoy all of our bonus content, ad-free listening, and early access, tap subscribe now in the show notes or go to historyasithappens.com.